Let's check the latest news updates with APARNA VATS.
Namaskar. Welcome to Friends World TV. This is the English Bulletin and the news from the week. As Modi-Xi rap summit in Indian temple town, differences remain. Abhijit Banerjee wins Nobel Prize. Today he is not only my son, but of the whole country, says his proud mother. Government will identify and deport each illegal immigrant, says Amit Shah. Trump hits Turkish ministers with sanctions, raises steel tariffs. Turkey widens invasion as Syrian army returns to northeast. Virat Kohli closes in on Steve Smith in test rankings. The news in detail. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping, who met in a southern Indian temple town for a two-day informal summit, agreed to establish a new mechanism to balance bilateral trade and decided to prudently manage their differences. The world's two most populous countries, however, did not issue a joint statement in what appeared to be a lack of consensus between them on the border dispute, regional security as well as bilateral trade, which with concern in New Delhi over Beijing's widening trade surplus. Both sides will prudently manage their differences and not allow differences on any issue to become disputes. A statement by India's Foreign Ministry said at the end of the bilateral summit that concluded on Saturday. Xi said he had a heart-to-heart discussion with Modi on bilateral relations and that their summit meetings, including last year's summit held in China's Wuhan, were making visible progress in India-China ties. Soon after the meeting between the two leaders ended, India's Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale told reporters that a new mechanism will be established to discuss trade, investment and services at an elevated level. The second informal summit between Xi and Modi since April last year, held in Mamallapuram, an ancient port town in Tamil Nadu state, came amid strained relations following China's strong reaction to New Delhi's decision to revoke the special status of India-administered Kashmir, a Himalayan region also claimed by China's close ally Pakistan. China had criticized India's decision in August to bifurcate the state and create a separate administrative territory in Ladakh, a Buddhist majority area of the disputed Kashmir region, highlighted Beijing's territorial claims in the region. Just 2 days before his visit, Xi said that he was watching the situation in Kashmir and would support Pakistan in issues related to its core interests. However, Gokhale, the Indian Foreign Secretary, said the Kashmir issue was not a point of discussion between the two leaders. I would like to state quite categorically that this Kashmir issue was not raised and not discussed. Our position in any way very clear that this is an internal matter of India, he told reporters. During their meeting, the two leaders discussed, among other things, the historical trade links between their countries, radicalization and terrorism with a new focus on people-to-people relations. Since Modi took over in 2014, the two leaders have met several times, but have achieved little in resolving border issues, trade, or the hostilities towards each other. China is a regional economic powerhouse and is far ahead of India in defense capabilities. Its aggregate gross domestic product, at about $14 trillion, is nearly 5 times larger than India's. The annual bilateral trade between the two neighbors hovers at about $95 billion. Gokhale said the two leaders discussed economic issues, including New Delhi's $53 billion trade deficit with Beijing. India has repeatedly demanded greater access to the Chinese market to increase its exports and decrease the trade deficit. From an Indian perspective, the trade deficit is a fundamental issue that needs to be addressed. There has been much talk about doing so for a long time, but progress has been very slow. This was said by Manoj Kevalramani, Fellow of China Studies at the Bangalore-based Takshashila Institution think tank. Kevalramani said that China imports agriculture and primary goods from India while exporting electronics, electrical equipment, and pharmacy goods. This creates an imbalance, and what has worsened this are Chinese non-tariff barriers, particularly with regard to Indian pharmaceutical goods, he said. Xi and Modi held several hours of one-on-one talks during the two-day summit that came amid a trade war between Beijing and Washington, as well as New Delhi's tough trade negotiations with the Trump administration. Chinese analysts have expressed concern at New Delhi's deepening relationship with the United States. President Xi's concern is whether India will agree to be a doorstop to China's growth. Both countries have suffered under the divide and conquer tactics used by the colonial powers. If there is going to be an Asian century, Asia will need to look to its future, not repeat its past. A Beijing-based political and economic affairs commentator, Aina Tangen, referring to New Delhi's close relations with the West, told, "The nuclear-armed neighbors have had a long-standing border dispute. They went to war in 1962 over Arunachal Pradesh state in northeast India, where China claims about 90,000 square kilometers of the territory next to Tibet. In 2017, they came face-to-face again in Doklam area, a long-pending border tussle between China and Bhutan after the Indian army sent troops to stop China from constructing a road there. Despite more than 20 rounds of talks, the border dispute between the two countries is nowhere near a solution. New Delhi has still pushed for a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable settlement to the border issue. The Indian government's position is that we need to work towards a resolution, and in the meantime, we should maintain peace and tranquility at the border. That's a continuation of long-standing Indian policy, and it is a sound approach," Keval Ramani said. Banerjee is the third Bengali after Rabindranath Tagore and Amartya Sen to win the Nobel, and the second after Sen to receive the recognition in economic sciences. Like Sen, Banerjee too is an alumnus of Presidency College, now Presidency University. "Today, he is not only my son, but the son of the entire country," Nirmala Banerjee said on Monday, hours after the Nobel Committee announced the 2019 prize in economic sciences for her son Abhijit, along with wife Esther Duflo and Michael Kramer. Banerjee's father, Deepak Banerjee, was a professor and head of the economics department at the then Presidency College after his death in 2007. Presidency University organizes Deepak Kumar Memorial Lecture in his honor. In 2018, Duflo had delivered the 10th lecture in the series. Dipali Sen Gupta, his teacher at Kolkata's South Point School, recalled Banerjee as an introvert but an excellent student. "It's difficult imagining the kind of recognition he has received today. He has impressed us beyond words," Sen Gupta said. "I taught him in classes 6 and 7. He had poor handwriting, for which his mother was called in, but he was an excellent student who always respected teachers." Besides economics, Pathak said Banerjee was very good in mathematics, English, and history as well. He stood first in both economics and mathematics entrance tests in presidency, but chose economics as his honors subject, he said. Economist Kaushik Basu, chief economist of the World Bank from 2012 to 2016, said Banerjee and Duflo were PhD advisors of his son. They deserve the recognition. The impact of his work is large. It is a very creative and powerful work. This is very good news, Basu said. The government will identify illegal immigrants staying on every inch of the country's soil and deport them as per international law, Union Home Minister Amit Shah told Rajya Sabha on Wednesday. The BJP Sabha election manifesto had promised that it would complete the process of NRC in areas where illegal migration has affected people's livelihood and employment. In future, we will implement NRC in a phased manner in other parts of the country, it had said. Replying to queries, Minister of State for Home Affairs Nityanand Rai said the central government has received many representations for extending the NRC deadline in Assam. He said a petition signed by about 25 lakh applicants was submitted to the centre and the president demanding extension of the deadline to correct anomalies. Since many genuine names have been left out and many bogus names registered, the government has requested the Supreme Court to extend the time, he said. There will be some delay, but the NRC will be implemented properly without any faults, he said, asserting that the government's intention is to ensure no genuine citizen is left out of the NRC. To another question, Minister of State for Home Affairs G. Kishan Reddy said the central government will soon come up with two bills, one to set up fast-track courts to clear the 1.6 lakh pending cases related to crimes against children, and another to further strengthen the POCSO Act with stringent penal provisions. A proposal will be moved for seeking cabinet approval to amend the two key laws, he said. Reddy said the modification of law will address the need for stringent measures against rising trend of child sex abuse in the country and combat the menace of relatively new kind of crimes. The government feels that the strong penal provisions will act as a deterrent, he said. It intends to protect the interest of the vulnerable children in times of distress and ensure their safety and dignity, the minister said. When a member pointed out that the NCRB report has shown a rise in crime rate, the minister said reporting of crimes had increased with the launch of online portal after the 2012 gang rape incident. The number of cases registered has also gone up after it was made compulsory for police to register such crimes and investigate them within 4 months, the minister added. US President Donald Trump on Monday authorized sanctions against Turkish officials, said the US would stop negotiating with Turkey on a $100 billion trade deal, and boosted tariffs on the country's steel to 50% over Ankara's military operations in northeast Syria. Turkey launched the cross-border assault on Kurdish fighters on Wednesday after Trump withdrew some US troops from the region, drawing sharp criticism from fellow Republicans who accused him abandoning allies who fought against Islamic State of Iraq and the relevant ISIL or ISIS. Trump on Monday signed an executive order that authorized the U.S. Treasury and State Departments to impose sanctions on individuals, entities, or associates of the Turkish government involved in actions and endanger civilians or lead to the further deterioration of peace, security, and stability in northeast Syria, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a statement. According to the U.S. Treasury, Turkish Minister of Defense Hulusi Akar, Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu, and Energy Minister Fatih Dönmez were placed on the department's sanctions blacklist, freezing their U.S. assets and banning U.S. or U.S.-related transactions with them. In a statement announcing his executive order, Trump said he was fully prepared to swiftly destroy Turkey's economy if Turkish leaders continued down this dangerous and destructive path. Trump said Turkey's military offensive is endangering civilians and threatening peace, security, and stability in the region. I have been perfectly clear with Turkish President Erdogan. Turkey's action is precipitating a humanitarian crisis and setting conditions for possible war crimes, he added. Turkey must ensure the safety of civilians, including religious and ethnic minorities, and is now or maybe in the future responsible for the ongoing detention of ISIS terrorists in the region. Following Trump's announcement, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said he was being dispatched to the Middle East to try to mediate the crisis. He said Trump had told Erdogan on a phone call on Monday to agree to an immediate ceasefire. The United States of America simply is not going to tolerate Turkey's invasion in Syria any further. We are calling on Turkey to stand down, end the violence, and come to the negotiating table, Pence told reporters. Following Trump's announcements, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said he was being dispatched to the Middle East to try to mediate the crisis. He said Trump had told Erdogan on a phone call on Monday to agree to an immediate ceasefire. The United States of America simply is not going to tolerate Turkey's invasion in Syria any further. We are calling on Turkey to stand down, end the violence, and come to the negotiating table.